Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders from all over the world who share their expertise and wisdom so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi Schalk, and if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're happy to have you here. I'm co-founder of HLH Growth Solutions, where we help businesses scale their revenue through outside of the box visibility strategies. And again, if you're new, welcome, and please stay to the end because we are going to have a gift for you. But I want to jump in. I have a fantastic guest today. We've been chatting behind the scenes, and I know it's just going to be a fun conversation filled with value. So without further ado, welcome Alex Karzag with Producers Trust. Welcome, Alex, to the podcast.
Thanks, Heidi. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you. So Alex, can you kick us off and give us a little background about you, the company, and your role within it?
Sure. So originally I grew up in Silicon Valley, California, and I've been working mostly with primarily with startups, almost exclusively with startups since graduating college from UC Davis, and jumped around from like web technology, one web tech company to another, and moved around between San Francisco and New York, and wore a lot of different hats over the years, and started with like sales management, operations. I had a pivotal move into product management where I got to work more with the tech teams and learn how products get made, from a web tech perspective. And then I've also spent time between Northern California and where I am right now in Central Mexico and Guanajuato. So it's been interesting working remotely also for about 15 plus years and working primarily with like virtual or distributed teams. And that's been very interesting and enjoyable. And so now the last 7 years, I've been with a company called Producers Trust, and we're also still considered a startup. We're still pre-revenue, even though we've raised several millions of dollars through a seed round. And we're classified as an ag tech, so an agricultural tech company. My role right now is VP of PMO, so Vice President of Project Management Office. But I've worn several different hats with this company as well. I started off as a freelancer and came on as a part-time project manager, and then quickly became, project management director, chief project officer. I was head of product for a while, and even became a program manager. And we've gone through several generations of management and pivoted a few times with our product. But essentially what we're trying to, our mission hasn't really changed, although our product strategy kind of has, and the products we produce has a little bit, and the technology. So we're trying to tackle global food systems, which is challenging. There are a lot of challenges. And so what we've seen is that there's an ecosystem approach where we first kind of started with a digital marketplace. And so when I joined, we didn't have a tech team either. We had a handful of people based in different countries around the world, and we had a white paper, and we were raising funds then too. And so now we have several different published products and services. So one of the first things we built was this digital marketplace, producersmarket.com, and then we realized that there was a lack of transparency in the current global food system. And so our mission is help the transition from traditional farming methods to more sustainable or regenerative farming methods around the world. We didn't really choose like a commodity to focus on or specific geography to focus on. So Producers Market was open to the world for free, basically for producers to have a web presence if they didn't already, and show us just who they are. Who are the people growing the food? How is the food grown? What are your practices? What are your values? And then looking at the product specifically, over the years after we created producersmarket.com, we created something called Storybird. So storybird.io is the website, and that's a very cool product that I'm very proud of because I got to work with our tech team on the development of it and the launch of it, and run that business channel for a little bit within the company. And Storybird basically came out a little bit prior to COVID, so QR codes weren't as common as they are now. The idea is that you put a QR code on a product package and you scan it to see the story of the product, see the ingredients that went into it, see the producers behind those, and who they are, what their values are. But you can actually follow the ingredients on a map, and through the supply chain. See, okay, it was planted here at this time, and it was harvested at this time, and then it was processed in this way at this place, and these are the people who did it, with lots of high quality media along the way. And so it was very interactive, and something still is very interactive. And there's ability to integrate blockchain as an option to really add that kind of additional traceability. And so Storybird is a very cool product, and we didn't really commercialize that 100% either. But they're still both available websites and certain services. So Producers Market, the digital marketplace, Storybird, the basic consumer education was the idea behind Storybird. So consumers can learn about where the food's coming from and make more educated and conscious decisions, saying, okay, well, I want to support this with my dollars versus supporting this other product that won't tell me anything about where it came from. Or it's like, because usually when there's less transparency, there can be a bad story when it comes to food. And when there's more transparency, you can tell like, okay, this is a high quality product, or it came from a place of good, where there's good sustainable practices or ethical practices. So we kind of moved from there, and then we created a mobile app. And the mobile app, the goal there was something called MRV, Measure, Report, and Verify. And so the goal is to capture on the ground data, like at the farm, to help support like sustainability and impact claims that this product or the product company or those producers might be making. And so we built that up, and then we never really commercialized that either, but we did spend time unifying all these three platforms that I'm mentioning. So what we realized over the years, after building these three things, talking to producers all over the world, talking with lots of governments, lots of associations, lots of nonprofits, lots of NGOs, is that really there's an ecosystem problem where it's very disjointed in the global food system. And there are some people who are really doing things right, but the majority are just, this is just my perspective, but from my experience, the majority of a lot of the food that's out there is very disjointed, and transparency is hard. It's not an easy thing to accomplish. So we realized that if we can help build an ecosystem around like anchor commodities like coffee or cacao or rice or something, very, very mainstream, with some committed primary off-takers or buyers of those commodities, and then work with like the local governments or regional governments, work with NGOs and associations, and work with farmer groups who actually work, and then extension service providers who work with the farmer groups and the actual farmers, and to get everybody to work together, including investors and people who fund, let's say post-harvesting infrastructures projects. Building those ecosystems is how we can build something that will last for longer than just a year or two of purchase orders. So we can get like 10-year projects, and 15-year projects like that. We need to think more long-term like that. So we, I'm even using the word ecosystem, but now we developed something called landscapes. And so really the term is landscape relationship management. So a lot of people are familiar with CRM, customer relationship management. Turns out Salesforce has something called PRM, partnership relationship management. And so we built a custom platform on top of that PRM called LRM, landscape relationship management. And then so our approach now is building these entire landscapes or ecosystems with all of those different stakeholders that I mentioned. So we have a lot of external stakeholders that we manage expectations and projects with. And I'll just pause there because that was a lot to digest and a lot of information. But I guess getting back to my role there too, just before the pause is, we realize that internally we need a project management office and not just this. My job is really to kind of keep our processes streamlined, efficient, and consistent across the different departments in the company. So I hope that makes sense.
That was all great. Thank you for sharing. Keep talking if you want to talk and share more information everybody's getting. So I appreciate you giving us all of that. So thank you, Alex. You mentioned you do a lot of work with startups. So what attracts you to startups?
Yeah, good question. Several things. There's kind of a high risk, high reward theme that comes along with startups. But I think what attracts me the most is the diversity of any position and I would say the ability to wear many hats, sometimes even the requirement to wear many hats. So as a team member in a startup, at least from my experience, I've almost never been just pigeonholed into one position where it's like all you do is project management or all you do is product management. Or you're also helping with marketing, you're helping with sales, you're sometimes helping with finance and HR and operations and legal, and I enjoy that. The diversity is really probably what I enjoy the most about startups. And then, and the ones I've worked with have always been global too. So working with different people around the world has been, enjoyable for me, and just learning about different cultures and people's backgrounds and building those kind of global relationships over time.
when you were talking, I was thinking back. I've worked with a lot of startups that in my day too, and
Yeah.
we're kind of, we're considered probably a startup too because we pivoted, and I know we're going to talk about pivoting and things like that. But I agree with you. There's like the energy is pretty awesome, and you do get to kind of get your hands in everything, and it's a different environment, I think, than and not everybody's built for it. So, Alex, do you think mission and value alignment between team members and a company are important?
Yes, 100%. I think it's extremely important, actually. And something I did before I joined Producers Trust was I was working as a freelancer and had several different clients and was working with other freelancers on projects and realized there was an opportunity for us to kind of join together in an agency model to just attract more business, versus us individually trying to find projects, and created something called the Conscious Freelancer Network. Eventually changed it to called the Pebble Freelancer Network. But right as we launched it, I met the Producers Trust team and then joined Producers and didn't really get a chance to launch it and work in it. But I'm bringing it up because the goal was for freelance, because what we ended up doing as freelancers, I don't know if you've done this too, Heidi, but we ended up finding projects that paid well, that might be projects we really weren't that interested in, just to be honest. And so we take them, and say, okay, this company can pay me, they need my services, great. But we'd offer a lower rate for projects that we did actually believe in and have more mission alignment, values alignment with. And sometimes those projects or companies had no money, couldn't even pay, so it was just volunteer work, and I realized through that, like that means something, right? It's like, okay, well, if we can band together as freelancers, then we can actually take on more projects that we believe in and really want to support, not just the ones that we need to earn income from. And then I realized over the years too, like just with hiring different people, because when I joined Producers, I mentioned before it was small. Our team has grown and shrunk several times over the 7 years. But as we were hiring people, the mission alignment and the values alignment, I think, and I'll add in a cultural fit, is I found out to be really just more even anyone's skill set, or really the even specific job that they're they're being hired to do, because skills can be learned, right? Skills can be taught, and so the character and like the values of that person end up being more, sorry to be redundant, but more valuable to and more impactful to the company and then to the organization over time than any like specific skill set. So I learned that the hard way too, by hiring someone where I was like, this person has a skill set we need right now, but I don't feel like it's a good cultural fit. And I went against my gut and hired this person, and it didn't work out. So, definitely I've learned that one the hard way too. But so yeah, I'd say it's extremely important, at least from my perspective, no matter what size of company either.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And you always have to follow your gut. And I've done that too, where it's just like I'm like, oh no, I'm just this is what we need at the moment, or this is what I think is the right thing to do. Well, and your gut's telling you, maybe we should hold off and not do it anyway. And then I'm like, should listen to it. So like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes there's an opportunity, like if it's a very defined project or task even that you need someone to do, maybe that's okay. You don't need like a cultural fit for someone you're never going to talk to, and it's like, here, I just need this thing coded for 2 weeks, and that's okay. But if it's like a core team member or even someone you're going to be working with, you foresee working with for months or to years, then I'd say it's like worth considering heavily.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the Producers Trust approach to achieving its mission?
Yeah, so I mean, in a word, partnerships. I was describing that our landscape relationship management approach. So the LRM is the tool, to help manage these relationships and visualize, alongside like a project management tool, let's say, once a landscape gets started. But there's so many different stakeholders, and each of our landscapes is so unique that partnerships are fundamental and key to all of them. And there's lots of different types of partnerships. So, we need to speak different languages. I mean, quite literally different languages, but also just between like farmers and farmer groups, extension service providers who work directly with farmers, and usually they work with governments. Sometimes they work with CPG brands, so consumer packaged goods brands, the brands that we all know and we buy at the stores every day. We have relationships with the CPGs also, and other smaller brands. They don't always have to be the large CPGs, but small ones as well. Governments, So, the governments are really interested in how we're going to help bring business into their country if it's not happening already, or how we're going to help, export their products. And then investors are always, an interesting one. We work with, portfolio managers who need to deploy capital, usually impact capital around the world towards like let's say an agroforestry project, or some kind of like a sustainably produced cacao or coffee project, or some type of land management. Typically, we don't really work with the oceans right now; it's all land based. But this kind of multi-stakeholder convening and partnerships are key.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about work environment, because I know since COVID, the pandemic, a lot of people have moved to remote. But from what I'm understanding, you've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Can you share the pros and like 15 years? So before you already were like you're like, this is not a piece of cake, right? So
Yeah.
can you share the pros and cons that you've seen or that you've had with personally for you with working remotely? Primarily.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, when COVID hit and everyone started working remotely, for me it was no change at all. It was exactly the same. But it's very interesting because I prefer working remotely. It's nice to be flexible. You have more control over your time and your hours and your obviously your location. But I will say there's absolutely no replacement for meeting people in person. So I have a good example. When I was in my late 20s, I was working with a French telecom company, and this was a global company. While I was there, they grew from about 200 to 700 global employees. So I started in sales, and I didn't really enjoy the outside sales role. And I asked them, I was in San Francisco at the time, and I asked, is there something else I can do with you guys, because I'm not enjoying this? And they're like, no, sorry, not right now. And I said, okay, sorry, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go work for the radio station that I've been listening to on my commute every day to do it from work. And while I was there, they said, hey, look, maybe there's this product manager role actually that you could be a good fit for. And I didn't know what that was. And so I ended up taking this product manager role and moving to New York for it, and spending time traveling to France to meet the R&D team, which was in southern France. The headquarters were in Paris. And so I ended up doing a lot of traveling and meeting people in person. And that was key to my role, because I was, a product manager for a development team that's in France, and I'm in New York, and we sell this product globally, around the world. And I don't remember how many offices they had when I joined, maybe, or not offices, countries, or probably in about 15 countries. But by the time I left, they were in over 20 countries, maybe 24. So they were growing pretty rapidly, kind of an M&A strategy for their growth. But they did something that was very interesting. Every year they had a global management meeting. And so anyone with like a middle management or higher title would fly to a different location every year and just spend time together for a week. And it was ironic, because this is a telecom company. I was working on a web conferencing product where this is pre-video conferencing technology, right? Like Zoom didn't exist like this at the time. So I was working on a product that was being sold as an alternative to physical meetings. So you don't have to, the recession 2008 also was like, okay, companies need to save money on travel. So our sales went up and our usage went up. And I was like, hey, you just send people this link, you can share your screen, you can let them control it. The audio conferencing worked really well, it was high quality, had recordings, blah, blah, blah. And so a company that sold that would still send everybody to one place for a week. And yes, we had work meetings, and we would accomplish some business goals, but we had the relationships that came out of that, when you got to just talk to these people, spend time in person with these people. And yes, there are these, some cheesy team building activities here and there, but they were worth it. And actually, it's more the downtime that I think would paid off. It was like, hey, you get to just have a meal with somebody in person and learn about what, I've been talking to you almost every day over the phone or over the computer. And now I know, oh, you have kids. Oh, and this is what they're into. And this is your history. And these are your hobbies. And those little things just go such a long way. By far, from my experience at that company, I was there for about 3 years, was the most valuable thing that they did, because everybody had to work together virtually from 20 plus countries around the world. But having that experience, and then you get to see people year after year at those events, paid off in spades. It was invaluable. So if there's any virtual company, virtual companies out there, or remote only companies, I'd say, that aren't doing team retreats yet or anything like that, I highly recommend it because it improves everybody's relationship and just makes it so much easier to work together.
Yeah.
And sorry, one last point was just like we could be trying to overcome a challenge between New York and Western Europe, let's say, and it'll take us days or even weeks because we're time zone difference. Maybe we can't always spend time on a video call even together, or it's through email, it's through Slack, but get us together in a room for 2 days, done.
Magic happens. Things,
yeah,
yeah. Things get done quicker. No, I agree with you. I think that's amazing. I love the flexibility of being online and being able to just have a conversation like this on Zoom. It's great. But then when you meet the person in person, it's just so much better. And I think there's also like when you go back to working with them after that, there's just a bond that's been created. So things I think also get more efficient in that way too. And you feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm not able to put this in words properly, but you feel like you want to do well for them, right? You really want to, you're already now bonded in your team. And now it's just like, I know for me personally, I want to work a little harder. Not that I'm not, I am, but I want to work a little harder even because now we just had that time together in person.
Yeah. More motivation and maybe even a little more like,
I feel like you're
like innate accountability, just kind of comes with having had that experience. You're like, yeah, I want to support you more because now we have more of a personal relationship, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share with us what you've learned from working with different startups, like wearing all different hats? Like what are the benefits of that, takeaways that you've had from it, and like, being able to have your hands in different things in that experience?
Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting. And I think from my perspective, I mean, my first kind of, I'm going to say global role within a company was that product manager role I mentioned. And it was a big eye opener to see, because I had to interact with all the different departments, right? And I was familiar with sales, marketing, and operations before that, but I'd never really had to work too much with legal or too much with finance or too much even with senior leadership at that point because I was younger. But being able to see seeing behind the curtain and kind of how the machine works, at least every machine's a little bit different, of course, but just having that exposure is very eye-opening and a great learning experience. And so I've never had the chance to do this, but I've talked to a couple different CEOs that I've worked with over the years about the CEO wearing the hat of other people, sorry to use the word, but like lower down the ladder in the company for a day or for a couple of days even, and saying, okay, like actually a good analogy is even just a restaurant. Like anyone who is working the front end of the restaurant, go wash dishes just for one shift, so you know what the dishwasher does. And you can see, or if you don't work in the backside, you're not working in the kitchen, just go in the kitchen, like clean it for an hour. Try that, and just so you know exactly what the person whose job that is, so you know what they do all the time. And or if you're a bartender, like be the host, And so I think restaurant manager is actually a great analogy for this because it also, to me, it works for any kind of larger, or sorry, not larger, but different organization, whether it's technology or life coaching or whatever, manufacturing. So I think just somehow figuring out how to learn what everybody else does in an organization to at least a certain level. It doesn't have to be a deep understanding, but understanding their roles has been crucial for me. So I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great point and a big gold nugget especially for somebody listening if you're running a business. And, it's nice to every now and then do a little check-in to see what everybody else is doing and what their roles are. Because especially in today's fast-paced world, like with AI and you're in the tech space, like everything is moving pretty fast nowadays, and your team needs to be able to keep up with that. So to kind of put yourself in their shoes and revisit what it looks like in their role, I think is really, really important. Such a great point. Alex, can we talk a little bit about growth? With Producers Trust, you've been doing this. Company's been going for 7 years, and I'm sure there's been a lot of evolution over those 7 years in your growth. So can you share with us some of the challenges that you've seen or you may have had and how you overcame them?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so as with, typical with startups, you can be constantly fundraising, right? Or constantly in a state of fundraising or rarely out of them. So for us, we've talked to a lot of different investors and types of investors and different sophistication levels over the years. And we heard a lot of no's, or like, why aren't you focusing on a commodity, or why aren't you focusing on a geography, or why are you doing it that way? And a lot of questioning what we're doing, or our strategy, and staying true to your mission, and sometimes staying true to your strategy. I think it's okay to pivot, right? But from our perspective, we stayed true to our mission the whole time of trying to and I mentioned to help farmers transition, but part of that transition includes getting more money in their pocket, basically, so they can earn more. Because with sustainable and regenerative farming practices, their outputs are higher, they have more diverse products to sell, the quality of their products is higher, and they might then be able to request a premium for those. And then the environment, their physical environment, their land is improved, and that improves their farm and their livelihoods, but also their communities. And there's so many benefits, right? And then the end consumer gets healthier products, increases biodiversity. There's a lot of benefits. And so really, we've never deviated from that. However, our product strategy and our product market fit has been something that, I mentioned, we didn't have a lot of focus on. We didn't know exactly what it was going to be. When we started, I mentioned we built this digital marketplace, and we thought that was going to be, at least from my perspective, like that was going to be our commercialization strategy as well. So we build this digital marketplace, and we build in transaction functionality, and then we take a little piece of each transaction. That's a pretty decent, that's a decent business, right? But the product market fit wasn't quite there because there's a lot of competition out there in that world, and it also took a lot more tech development to get to that stage with our approach. So, then we took a pivot a little bit towards Storybird. And so Storybird was, okay, we can sell this directly to CPGs, but it's like, who are we talking to at the CPG company? Is it the marketing person? Is it the sustainability person? Is it depending on the size of the CPG, is it the owner, and the founder or co-founders? And that can work, but we also did that with like very minimal resources. So hardly really no marketing and a very small sales budget. So that was interesting. So we pivoted from that to then the mobile app, because that's when kind of scopes 1, 2, and 3 reporting were coming out and becoming what we thought were going to become more of a requirement. So this on the ground data was becoming more important, and you wanted to create like an auditing trail so that data could be reported to governments who are requiring it. And one example is like the EUDR for the European Union deforestation. So we then pivoted, again I guess the point of this is like, pay attention to when things are not working and don't be afraid to pivot. It's kind of the summary here, because what it took us years to figure out, it was this landscape and ecosystem approach I mentioned earlier. And we were kind of looking at it through the lens of like shiny new object of like, okay, Producer's Market's the way to go. No, Storybird's the way to go. Oh, hey, they can work together. They're both great together too. Oh no, it's the mobile app. Oh, but that works also with Storybird and Producer's Market. And then it became, oh, hey, you know what? We actually need a way to manage all of this, all the stakeholders in this ecosystem or landscape that we're working with. And we actually don't have a traditional CRM tool coupled with a project management tool actually isn't really the best way to do it. So that's why we created this LRM. And also along the way, going back to one of your first questions about mission alignment, values alignment, cultural fit, we've had, I mentioned several generations of leadership over the 7 years, and some people just weren't the right fit, who might have been in crucial roles. And so don't be afraid to change your team if there's not a fit. That's something it's not easy. It's not always easy to do, and sometimes it can be very uncomfortable, but don't be afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately they might not be great to be in, but they're fundamental to business success. They can be, because then once you, and it's been interesting because another example is like someone we hired in a key role who came on board and talked a brilliant game, and we thought, you know, it was going to help like change our company, and turned out to just not be what we expected. So that changed, and now we're in a better place for it. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, so good. So how are you getting visible? How is Producers Trust getting visible and getting in front of your partners and, you know, those your clients? What's working?
Yeah,
What's not working? You got to know, right? You got to be
it's interesting. I mean, we started off going to like conferences like Expo West, Expo East, you know, these typical food conferences that have been going on for decades. And we'll continue to do that. And that's more with like getting in front of like brands and buyers, and then also just meeting producers. Sometimes there are not as many producers, there are more brands, of course, but it's how the industry works, right? And so these kind of conferences around the world are one thing, but our CEO is very active and attends a lot of different conferences around the world. You know, we've attended several of the COP conferences, and then the World Economic Forum at Davos earlier this year. We had a presence there as well, and really attending our partner events too. So I mentioned Salesforce was one of our partners. You know, we'll go to their event in San Francisco, Dreamforce, and really just staying up to date with the activities of our partners, and really like getting invited. Like we just get invited. Really, it's not. We don't have a ton of outreach, to be honest. We're not doing really much outward marketing, but the food industry is complex, and we're not. You know, if I worked for just a brand, just like a food brand, I would have a totally different. There would be a very specific strategy. There'd be a lot of outward marketing, you know, a lot of social media work. I will say our CEO's LinkedIn is pretty active, and he's had a lot of exposure on there, and a lot of people have contacted us through his LinkedIn posts. So that's probably been the most fruitful out of everything. You know, we even. Something we were doing at the beginning was helping smaller producers manage their, you know, their Instagram accounts, and helping them do some outward marketing. And that's when we were promoting Producers Market, you know, and they had a profile, you know, free profile on Producers Market. And actually, what we were doing, we weren't managing their Instagram accounts for them. What we were doing was we created several Instagram accounts with different themes, like let's just say organic theme, and we would, you know, make posts about organic products and producers, and mention them in that post, and that worked really well to get exposure for the producers, and a little bit, and it would help us as well, like have more users come on board to the marketplace. But yeah, really, I'd say the key for us right now is partnership relationship management, and going to the events that they invite us to. You know, and yeah, and it could be a government event, it could be you know, an association event. Yeah.
back to that in person is key.
Yes, those are in person. Yeah, those are in person. And the more you can be in person for those events, the better. It's not always possible, right? There's some restrictions and some travel budget. You know, it can be travel budget issues, but yeah, in person would be the way to go.
Awesome. Well, Alex, if we could come back in a year and revisit this conversation, what does success look like for you and for Producers Trust?
Oh, great question. Well, I would say at that point, LRM is fully launched. So we just completed a POC, a proof of concept of LRM, and we're actively selling and marketing that right now. We just started though. So let's say a year from now, that's launched. We have many, I don't know about many, it depends on the size of these landscapes, but we have definitely multiple landscapes active in different places around the world. All of these landscapes have multiple stakeholders. They're all engaged. Our stakeholders are successful. At that point, for my role, as you know, running PMO, we'll have a team of project managers who will be helping manage all these different landscapes, and we'll have several reports that we're able to provide that say, hey, these are the positive impacts of these landscapes. I mean, these take time, you know, so 1 year from now, we probably won't have a ton of like real on the ground data, but there's a lot of we will have on the ground data, but it's not going to be changing too much in 1 year. It'll be changing more in like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, down the line. But we'll have several successful landscapes around the world with, major CPG brands as the off-takers who have committed to the farmer transitions, to more regenerative and sustainable practices. And I think that will have such an impact that it'll be a no-brainer that this is the way to go for the future, because what's happening now, the way a lot of the tradition, any large companies that are still stuck in old ways and supporting the traditional farming methods that are producing more greenhouse gas emissions and really not transitioning to sustainable regenerative practices, or I think they're going to be losing business within the next 10 years. So,
Alex, for those people who are listening who want to connect with you, and how can they reach out to you, and how can they find you, and how can they reach out to you?
Thanks. Yeah, I'd say my LinkedIn would be the easiest, be the way to go. Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I guess for whatever contact info I provide in your show notes will suffice.
Yeah, go to check out Alex on social. We'll have LinkedIn, go find him there, and we'll also have all of his contact information inside the show notes, as well as his bio, and you can learn more about him and also about Producers Trust. You can also go to producerstrust.com to learn more about them as well. If you are watching Alex and I on YouTube, thank you for being here with us. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. That allows you to get notified when I have more amazing guests like Alex here today, sharing their wisdom with you. If you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, any of your favorite podcast platforms, and you can leave a review, we would love that. 5 stars preferably. That allows us to share this content out with more people, so more people can learn about Alex and Producers Trust and all the amazing guests that we have on the show. I promised you all a gift. So if you are looking to grow your visibility and you feel like what you're doing isn't working, Alex shared some amazingness about what's been working for them. You can always go to grab our Spotlight to Scale blueprint. Go to spotlighttoscale.com/blueprint and go grab that. Don't forget, go to producerstrust.com, go find Alex on LinkedIn. And Alex, before we wrap up, is there anything that you'd like to share that I didn't touch on or I didn't get to ask you today?
No, I don't think so. That was great. I appreciate the conversation, Heidi.
Thank you so much for your time. So grateful, and enjoy the rest of your day in Mexico. And thank you all for listening to us today. We will see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight.